This channel is supported by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses.
So this has become a little bit of a rare occurrence for me, but this video kind of just started off with me sitting down, turning on the Fender Pro Reverb, which is an original sort of 60s classic blackface circuit. Pro Reverb is like between Twin and Deluxe Reverb, right? It's like 40 watts, like a Vibro, Verb, that sort of thing. It's got 2 EV speakers in it, and the transformers were upgraded. It was sold by David Gilmour's tech, so it's kind of probably belonged to David at some point. I don't know. Anyway, so I plugged into that with my normal pedal board, and it kind of, I don't really feel like if I plugged into a modeler, as good as all of the modelers are, and I'm a real big fan of Line 6 stuff, Fractal stuff. I've tried most of the other stuff as well. Hotone Ampero, really cool. Quad Cortex, I think, does some things really well. What else is there? The Boss stuff has some cool stuff in there too. I've tried a bunch of it. Kemper, I dug that for a time. Tonex, it's got some cool stuff in it too. But what I feel like, I don't know, I don't think I would have sat there and just played for kind of 8-10 minutes for no good reason other than I was enjoying the feeling of having an amp in the room. And I don't know if you're someone who's been addicted to that. So I think basically there are 2 kinds of people in the world. There are those that can use a modeler and those that never will. I think most of us kind of live in the space of can use a modeler, and I think most working musicians these days have it kind of within their scope that sometimes they won't be able to use a real amplifier, whether that is that you need a silent stage, whether that is that you've got a gig with a lot of stairs, whether you're flying for certain gigs. And I'm reminded of Rob Harris from Jamiroquai, who sometimes watches the channel. He's got a podcast called Rob's Funk and Junk, and he got a question from a listener, and it was talking about, I think this was around the time that I turned this thing back on, talking about, when it is that he deviates from using the Quad Cortex. So for his main touring gig these days, he actually uses a Quad Cortex. I think if you'd listen to what he'd said, like over time, he'd gotten to realise that he's doing an in-ear gig anyway, and that backline and all that sort of stuff can be relatively inconsistent. And yeah, the stage volume was such that probably it doesn't make too much difference whether you're using a real amp or not once you make that leap. But he also said that playing the real amp, if you can get a little bit of volume going, sort of, and this is what I found as well, in a club situation, so beneath those massive stage kind of gigs, like Jamiroquai, the typical gigs that I guess more of us might be playing if we are playing gigs. So for me, it might be a dodgy wedding, it might be the odd pub kind of gig, or the odd kind of bar where you're maybe doing some improvised stuff. Those kind of gigs, I actually really think a valve amp or tube amp, whatever you want to call it, does actually do the job fantastically well, and probably better. Equally, I think if you're Joe Bonamassa and you are in control of the whole show, having as much stage volume as you want, I think a real amp makes sense for that as well. Is there anyone out there, by the way, watching this, still using a 4x12? That's the real test to this stuff, because yeah, I haven't had a 4x12 since I was about 16, something like that. But I used to have one. But yeah, I'd be interested to see if anyone is still using one of those. But for the reason that I think actually playing through a tube amp is so much fun for those people that have done it and maybe grew up doing it, I'm not sure that they'll ever really go away. I think we are getting to a point where there's less and less people and qualified people that can actually do the work on them or choose to do the work on them because, I don't know, maybe there's not enough amps around. I think if you look at like the best selling amps in the world these days, they tend to be all of the digital things, whether it's a Katana or a Spark or a Lunchbox amp. However, I think there's plenty of amps. Reading the Joe Bonamassa thing, I think he was saying there's like something like a 770,000 Fender amps made or something like that, like in the classic era. So we'll probably be alright. But yeah, is it a thing that you can get past? I think for me, the Fender FR12 actually does get pretty close to bringing that feel to a modeler. And the Laney LFR stuff, I know David Beebe really likes that. They just brought out a 4x12, crazily enough as well. Will you try one of those? But yeah, for me, I think it's a very occasional thing, but I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like I was playing better maybe than usual in that. Maybe I was going for different things. The in the room kind of feedback sort of thing. This amp was on 3.5, so it was kind of gig volume-ish, maybe a little bit beneath, but too loud to play at home most of the time. But it's such a cool feeling to plug that in sometimes. As much as a modeler boy I might be, even I could admit that actually that is quite a different experience to just playing through studio monitors. Let me know if you're addicted to it. Will you ever give it up? I think it's always nice to hang on to for as long as we can. Try and have a bit of fun still.